Hello everybody and welcome along to this video, which is Mr. Johnson Teaches Paper 1 Section A Question 2, part of my English language revision series of videos, all designed to support you through your English language GCSE exams no matter what stage you're at. So during this video you'll need to be ready to pause and make notes and also maybe do a small amount of reading, and ultimately this is all designed to try and support you with your language analysis. There are other videos on my channel that you can look at which will support you through other aspects, and indeed I've also put other videos together supporting you through how to analyse and connotations and things like that, which will support you with English language. So get ready then, and here we go, moving on with my first point, which is just a reminder, what does paper 1 look like again? Well, simply as you can see it there's the outside of a paper 1 right there for you. Traditionally they look the same, but on the inside. So this is the one where you are given one source. I always remember it as paper 1 means that there is one source, and this is a source which is a fiction text. So some sort of creative writing or story narrative will be there. And the first thing you will have is 15 minutes to do some reading and highlighting, and I always encourage my classes to do their planning in that 15 minutes as well. And then what you'll find inside is section A looks like that with those 4 questions, and then you've got section B, which is question 5, which is the written part. So you've got your reading in section A and writing in section B. And then within that today then we're going to be looking at this one, which is question 2, the analysis of language. So actually looking at a question 2, here's what it looks like, and you might want to be ready to pause this slide. So it says at the very top there, look in detail at an extract, and they'll give you a small source to look at or a small part of the source that you've already read. Fortunately, they reprint it for you as well. So yes, you can write on your exam paper because the examiner won't see that particularly. So anything you write there won't be seen, but you can do your planning and your highlighting if you wanted to highlight again, of course. And then beneath it, I've highlighted some of the key words, though typically the question is worded the same. How does the writer use language above to, in this case, it's describe the collector and his toys? So key words there in red, certainly language, of course, this is only looking at things like word choice and things like similes and metaphors, those sorts of methods. The key word there for me, how I always say for my classes, is how. How does the writer use language? So of course they use language, but how? Is it to make something seem terrifying? Is it to make it seem unsettling? Is it to make you feel humorous? So what is the actual effect? And that's something that students often miss out on. So there you go, that's exactly having a look at the question. The questions are more or less worded the same each year, but of course it'll be a different extract. And a reminder as well that you've got 10 minutes approximately. So round up that 8 marks to a nice round 10 minutes, and that means that you'll have enough time to do this question. We'll look at exactly how I would go about answering this question shortly, but let's actually have a look at this extract in more detail. So if you haven't done so already, now is a good time to pause the video, because on my next click I'm going to reveal some of the things that leaped out at me. I always encourage my classes to have a highlighter, and you're highlighting anything which leaps out at you. It may be important, it may be something that is unusual, whatever it may be. So I'm going to go quiet for about 5 seconds now. In that time, pause the video and read the extract before we move on. What would you highlight? Right, well, this is what leapt out of me then. So it's a small part of a much wider extract, which of course you haven't read fully here. But firstly, there's this repetition of stuff and toys. So that method of repetition using certain words, you'd want to look at why those words. What is it about the word stuff, calling these things stuff? And also toys. Toys which they don't sound like real toys really. There's something different going on here, which you'd be able to pick up if you've read the full extract. Then I also came up with these adjectives and these descriptions we've got here as well, like the funny noises, a sturdy carry bag, this meaty hand that he has as well. Just something strikes me as not being quite right by choosing that word meaty. And also these jerky actions that the toys are doing as well. All of this just adds up to make this whole piece not feel quite right to me. And then of course you end with a rhetorical question there as well, making the reader consider the answer that they might give to that question. Aiming really, I think if you're able to find 3 things about that little extract they give you for question 2 there, that small part of the much bigger extract, 3 things gives you enough to write about. You won't be able to write about any more than 3 things in the 10 minutes that you're given. Now, of course, the next logical question would be, okay, so I've done that and I've picked out repetition and the descriptions and the rhetorical question, but how do I write my answer? Well, this is what I always give as a structure for my classes. So how to answer, I go for the 1, 2, 3 method. Before I go any further, always worth saying, if you've been taught something different by your English teacher, stick with what you know. know, but if you're in any doubt, or you are one of my students indeed, then this is something that should be familiar to you. So I always go for this 1, 2, 3. Pick out a method that the writer has used, give me a quote, and then explore the effect of that language. What does it do or create, as it says there? So to make that a little bit more visible for you, I've come up with this paragraph and I've put the numbers before the sentence. So like number 1, the brackets there is the method. So here we go. The writer has included a range of short adjectives to describe the collector and his toys, making him sound threatening. Okay, so I've named the method very clearly. I've also said what it does very briefly, and then I lead into my evidence there, number 2. The writer includes descriptions of him as and his meaty hand, and then toys' jerky actions. So notice what I'm trying to do there is embed the quotes as well, drop them in like as little as I can just to keep this really brief, because as I've only got 10 minutes, I've got to work really quickly. So again, those short embedded quotes is what I'm going to try and go for there. Only use the bits I'm going to analyse, and that's what I do in number 3 here, looking at the effect. Now notice how that bit is definitely longer than the bits I've done so far. You've got to work really quickly here. It's a sentence for number 1, a sentence for number 2, and then multiple sentences for number 3. It all depends how good your analysis is and how easy you find it to unpick, really. But this is definitely where you want to spend some of your energy. And that's what I've got. By choosing these adjectives, the writer suggests that the collector is intimidating and powerful with the connotations of meaty. So I'm linking one of the words from the quote there and exploring the effect it has. Notice I've also labelled it as an adjective there. And then the second sentence afterwards, the writer also seems to almost dehumanise the toys, which we know are children, making them sound vulnerable and in great danger from him. So what I'm doing there again is unpicking a little bit further, and it's the key word for me is also. You've had your first idea in that first sentence about the meaty making him sound intimidating. What else can you say? You can say something about a second quote that you've used like I've done here, but ultimately pause that and reread that to yourself just so you can really understand that 1, 2, 3 method. I would be aiming to try and do that at least twice, and you'll see why when I show you the mark scheme in a minute. Some students who are very quick with their writing, you might be able to do 3, but it is not about necessarily writing 5 really quick ones. It's better to do fewer in more depth and more detail than it is to write lots. So looking at the mark scheme then, this is what you'd actually see it look like. And my summary on the left hand side there. So the 3 bullet points you see in the mark scheme are what teachers and ultimately examiners use to mark. Well, what you've got there are my 1, 2, 3 just in reverse order. My number 1 is the sophisticated terminology at the bottom, and then my quotes is the middle one, and then finally the effect. And this is a top level answer look at the mark scheme. So this is level 4, which is the highest you can achieve for this question. My advice on the left hand side, remember to pick out a method each time that you do this. Remember that you are absolutely analysing the effects of words. Those 2 bullet points are the things that most students forget to do. So don't be like most students. And number 3 bullet point for me, try your best to follow that 1, 2, 3 method that I've laid out there. By doing so, you'll give yourself the best chance of actually picking up the most number of marks. Because if you do number 1, 2, 3, as you can see on that mark scheme, you will be given some credit. And the depth that you go into is what decides whether you're going to be a level 1, level 2, level 3 or level 4 response. How to go on from here then? Well, ultimately it's about getting hold of some past papers and having a go at questions, and then giving that to hopefully your English teacher to mark. So I hope you found this video useful. Do check out the other videos on the channel as well, which unpick the different parts of language across the 2 different language papers. And above all, as always at the end of the video, I'll say give it your best, do your best, and good luck when it comes to your exams. And if you found this video useful, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Thanks very much everybody, and goodbye.